Hello, everybody. Today I'm interviewing Chad Meadows. Chad, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm the director of debate at Western Kentucky University. I also work at the summer camp for a public forum called PFBC, or the Public Forum Boot Camp. And yeah, in general, liker of debate.
Nice. And you wrote a public forum.
Not a lover, no.
I love it. It's
Just
just
like,
it's
just
just
like.
yeah. You also wrote a
Mhm.
book about PF, right? Like a PF textbook.
Yeah, like a bunch of years ago, I wrote a book, or I helped write a book called Introduction to Public Forum and Congressional Debate. Um, the takes are maybe a bit dated, but I think the fundamentals are pretty decent.
Cool. That just means you need to do like a volume two, volume three, like every
Yeah,
year.
it's in the back burner. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
once I get through like a few other projects, like that book will be in the pipe.
No, but you could like change a couple of words every 2 years, and then you can just like
New
sell it
edition.
as a book. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
exactly.
because there's a
Like
ton
a
of
regular
money in
textbook. Yeah.
publishing on
So
public forum.
true. So true. All these kids every year they have their like public forum syllabi with the public forum required reading. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of money there for sure. For
Mhm.
sure. Um yeah, so today I wanted to talk to you about like researching because I think most of the people who watch Proteus do evidentiary formats of debate, I think. Uh
Mhm.
I don't know because YouTube Analytics doesn't tell you what event people debate in, but I imagine that's what they do just because that's like most formats of debate. So I was wondering if you could just kind of like walk us through your process when like a new topic is released. What is your initial like what
Yeah.
do you initially do?
So I think the biggest thing that I do is what I don't do. So you don't, in my opinion, want to like immediately Google the resolution, or like think of the best contentions that you can kind of like immediately describe, and then like put in very specific words into your search engine looking for those contentions. I think when the topic first comes out, the first thing I want to do is do some background reading on the topic. So I'm doing like the most broad searches possible on the topic, just to get a grasp of what's going on now currently with the topic, what is the history of said topic, um, who are the most prominent writers on the topic, are there any organizations or think tanks that seem particularly invested in said topic. I want to kind of know about the debate that's happening in the academic world or the professional world before I kind of think about the debate that will happen in the competitive format. The degree to which you take that process, I think, depends on your event. If it's policy debate, you may spend weeks, a month, just doing background reading and thinking and ruminating on what you've like read and what like maybe the direction of the topic might be. Um, if it's public forum, maybe that's like an afternoon or a night, because you have significantly less time to, debate that topic, and you need to get basically an entire cadre of arguments together for a tournament that could be in like a week or two. So but yeah, I think the first step is just to like learn about the topic, and the degree to which that's important, I think, depends on how long your event utilizes said topic.
Makes sense. What do you like or dislike seeing in topics as far as like do you
Mm.
prefer topics that are more specific, that have topic areas, don't have topic areas?
So if we're talking about in almost every topic, I like when there is like a obvious like affirmative argument that is like well founded in the literature. There's a lot of articles about it. There's like a big debate about, like this one affirmative that like is like what I would call like the heart of the literature. So like a good example is like, single payer healthcare on like, healthcare topics, or, the Green New Deal, or I'm trying to think about, past topics. The current topic is an example of a topic I don't love in public forum. Uh, Though it kind of, I mean, I guess like it kind of has like a heart of the topic affirmative kind of. I mean, I think like depending on how like viable you think like the deter cartels argument is. But yeah, I think like having like an immediate like heart of the topic affirmative, I love that. And then I think the negative needs something to say that's like viable in debate. Like, and I think that whatever that thing is, like it needs to apply to like pretty much every affirmative. Okay, so it's like generally speaking, a range of affirmative arguments will be made, not just whatever is the most obvious, but like a bunch of them, which is cool. Debate should have a range of arguments. But I think that the negative needs to have like a thing that they can kind of always hang their hat on and like links to pretty much like every affirmative argument. Um, so, the example I'll give is like the college policy topic, which is about basically like using market incentives to decarbonize energy in the United States. So, you know, a carbon tax is like a great part of the topic affirmative. Um, there's a ton of lit about it, from think tanks to news articles to academic literature, right? Like there's a ton of like ways to research and think about a carbon tax. And then the topic in general I think like has like a very like heart of the topic disad, right? Like the econ disad. Pretty much no matter what you do, the affirmative has to decarbonize energy in the United States. And there's like people who think that that's bad for the economy, right? And so like that to me is like what makes a good topic. Um, at this point in my career, because I'm like old, the topic area and like the subject matter isn't like particularly important to me. Mostly just because, like, I don't know, like, I think that's important for like novice recruitment and retention. Like you want a topic that younger kids are going to be interested in and like think is cool and maybe like want to debate about. I don't really care because it's like A, like I get paid for this, so like no matter what the topic is, I have to do it. And then B, like I've just debated a lot of topics. But if I were writing a topic, I think novice recruitment, it being something that's relevant to the youths of today might be like an important consideration, though I don't really know what people today think is important.
Yeah, that is, I wonder what like a youth relevant PF topic would look like. Like,
I mean, if I feel like on social media, I see a lot of like youth passionate about like gun control, social issues
yeah.
like trans rights. I feel like reproductive access. The thing is, though, it's like so many things that are like very important to people are like very hard to introduce into
Yeah.
debate. So I honestly think that's why debate ends up recycling the same like 20 or so topics. Because it's like in a format where the judges are supposed to like aside their political bias,
Hmm.
there are only so many things that we can debate that don't make everyone mad and are important enough to not make everybody bored.
Yeah. No, that is like the thing with like novices too is like anytime, especially with like younger kids, I feel like once you tell them that they have to defend like both sides of the topic, they
Ooh,
suddenly start freaking out. Like they're like, "Oh, I love that
yeah.
topic. We should do that." It's like, "Oh, so you want to be neg on that topic?" And then they just kind of like just like the blood.
That's both younger kids and some topic writers. Like some topic writers, I'm just like, what were you thinking? There has to be a negative on this topic too. Like, it can't just be like a cool AF resolution.
Super fun. What have your favorite like resolutions been in the past couple of years? Or do you have favorites?
Okay, so I'm just gonna on my phone pull up some previous public forum resolutions.
Okay.
Um, I'll give you a hint though. Unfortunately, I don't think that the current PF resolution is going to make my list.
I was at work and I was like, why are we using this as a demo resolution? I don't understand. And then I looked and it wasn't like like it was the actual topic and
Mm,
it made more sense why we were using it, but I was very much shocked.
yeah. Um. Okay. So from the last year, I think my favorite would either have to be the April topic about the Security Council, like abolishing the Security Council. Um, oh, and the Arctic was sick. Okay, honestly, like if you notice, I think like the premium topics almost every year in PF are September and April, which
Hmm.
makes some sense depending on like your perspective.
Interesting. Well, why would it be
Um,
September? I have no idea why that would be. Why would it be September and April?
so September, October is like the beginning of the year. So like ostensibly they want to start out like I'm assuming the topic committee wants to like start out on a high note, right? Like introduce something that people want to debate. And then like April is the TOC, which like I
I
would
see.
imagine most people on the committee like are pretty invested in the TOC. And then like a lot of other months, it's like who knows what people debated. Um I would say okay, so last year, both the college LG and college policy topic are also pretty high up on my list. Debating nukes was like dope.
It was like it was so funny to like you got to skip the middleman a lot. But it was
Yeah,
so funny
it's
when
great.
judges would be like, I don't buy nuke war impacts.
It's like,
Oh.
but the judge, the topics about like what else do you
Literally
I
all
don't
gas.
know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was really fun. I loved that year. I feel like the debaters who like wanted to like drive the debate more towards social issues were probably like kind of sad because like there are like some like social justicey kind of like things to say, but like the quality and quantity of those were like
Mhm.
way worse than like the quality and quantity of like I geek out over IR stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Immigration in general, though, I think is a fun debate.
mhm. Yeah. So, okay, back to the researching. So let's say that like someone's watching this, they've never done debate before, so they're doing their background research. What kind of resources should they be looking at?
Okay, so I think that you want to differentiate in your brain between things that you can read for background info and things you can cut cards from. So cutting cards, this is like you don't know what debate is. So
Yeah.
cutting cards is basically whenever you take little parts of an article and you directly quote that little part as the evidence of the arguments that you plan to make in your actual rounds. So the sources that you can like read for background are like pretty like broad, honestly. Like I'm a big Wikipedia fan, like crowdsourcing good, like getting background info from Wikipedia, dope. You cannot like cite Wikipedia in like a debate round. Like you'll get clowned a little bit. So you want to be looking for publications that have a lot of credibility and don't seem too biased. So, and everyone's biased. So, like, debate's all about communication and I think emotional intelligence. So, like, everyone's biased, but like the reaction that a judge is going to have to the bias of like an academic who just like has an opinion, but like has written in like the Journal of Immigration is like distinct from like the Center for I Hate Immigrants 2024, right? Like obviously like one is like gonna like just immediately create a more visceral reaction in your judges. So, I think you want to like have like find evidence and from people with some mastery of the subject material. um, the degree to which like you want to try to like find like a new creative take on the topic, I don't know, it depends on your perspective. Like that's not my style. Like I'm big on like you should just like figure out what like the most mainstream arguments are and like just perfect those, like make those as good as possible and like just get good at debate. Because like I don't know, especially like if we're talking PF, right? Like I don't know. I feel like maybe 10% of PF rounds are decided by like who knows the most about the topic. And that'd be generous, honestly. And like the vast majority are like who doesn't make critical mistakes and who is the best at debating. So like if it were PF for me, I would just make sure that like I had something that like wasn't cringy, was pretty good, and just get on to like
Mhm.
making sure you really know your argument well, making sure you know how to deploy it well, making sure that like you have answers to like the other things that people are gonna say. Because like I don't know, I just don't think that like having like a cool case matters all that much in PF.
Mhm. Makes sense.
If it's like policy, I feel like how much you know about the topic can matter a ton in like almost every debate.
Yeah, makes sense. So when it comes to events where there is more of like a research burden, how you talked before about spending like a considerable amount of time doing that background research. How do you like to is there any like note taking you like to do during that process? Do you like to save those articles somewhere for later? How do you like to go about doing that background research?
So I'm not a big like a million tabs person. So like generally, like if I like see something that like looks good, I'll just immediately read it. Um, but I think like creating bookmarks is like helpful on Google, your like search engine, especially because like I don't know. So like if I'm gonna like have like a bunch of articles that I'm not gonna read in advance, I'm probably not gonna like make like a million tabs. I'm gonna like make like bookmarks because that just feels a little bit more organized for me. And then in terms of like note taking, um, I don't know, just like kind of basic note taking in Google Docs. Like I don't have like any special note taking device. Like I don't know. Also, like maybe just like blessed, but like I don't feel like I really need to like take that many notes to like memorize information. So like I don't know. I just never really had to take notes very much
Just
in
remember
school.
it.
So like
Literally just
I like
remember it.
never yeah, like I generally like memorize stuff whenever I read it a few times. Um Also though, it's like you're gonna come across like a lot of the same information quite often, especially for background info. So I feel like it should get committed to memory, but yeah, note taking is good. Um,
Cool,
we
cool.
love note taking. I don't know how, but
Yeah, just
I'm sure it's
definitely,
good.
consider it. Consider taking notes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So then once your kind of background research is done, do you have any preference or like any recommendations for students when it comes to using like just regular Google versus other search engines versus like databases and stuff? Do you have a preference?
Hmm. So I like Google fine, like though like I feel like the quality is like kind of falling off to be honest. So like if I'm talking about like what I do, if I'm doing like background reading, I'm gonna start with Google and I'm just gonna like try to find like a Wikipedia page, an explainer article from like kind of like a big think tank, or like organization. So like are they because like a think tank or an organization is like interested in engaging the public, right?
Mhm,
Like an academic writing on like Google Scholar doesn't really care if like Joe Blow reads his paper because like he's writing for other academics. So like I think starting with background information from like some kind of organization that like want that cares about lay people reading it. So like recommendations, if it's like foreign policy, you know, like the Council on Foreign Relations, like probably has like a backgrounder or like some kind of explainer. Something called FAS is like really good too. Like the government basically like subsidizes a bunch of like really smart people to write like backgrounder articles on like pretty much every topic. Um, and so like you can find those. Um, and then, you know, like a news article, maybe like if it's like one that's like intended to like provide background information on the topic is good. A big one that like I actually really enjoy if it's like a policy topic, like a longer topic, is like read a book. Like a book is literally intended for like a human being to consume it. And a lot of times books by academics are then taking their like considerably complex work and making it a lot more accessible for like people to read. And so a book can be nice. Um, yeah, I think those are all like good like sources. Like someone with authority who's like looking to explain the complex information to a layperson.
Makes sense. Then for actual card cutting, do you have a preference or a recommendation?
So I usually use Google Scholar, and there's like a few like things that I like with Google Scholar. One, it's like really easy to sort by date. So like if you search in Google Scholar on the left, it'll be like since 2020, and it'll just like show you like articles since 2020. Um, then let's say that you're like in like a library or just like using the internet on a college campus. Uh, Major hack because Google Scholar will like kind of recognize like that you're like using the Wi-Fi of like a place that has, some level of permissions to databases. And oftentimes, depending on, kind of like what agreement they have with that organization, there may be like on the right of the like result, just like a link to like immediately go straight to the PDF that you otherwise wouldn't get, that you do get because like you're on like the Wi-Fi network of some group that does have like some access.
Mhm.
I work at university, so like we have like, I don't know, semi-reasonable access to those publications. And so like sometimes will like do like more specific like searches via databases. So like big ones that I use, EBSCOhost has quite a few like academic articles. Um, Nexus Uni, previously called LexisNexis, has like law review articles, which I think are usually really good for debate because law reviews almost always like follow like a policy format basically. Like we'll be like, here's the problem, here's the laws that are like preventing us from fixing this problem, here's what we should do. Which like sounds familiar to a policy person. Um, Project Muse is like really good for like critical articles, and like research on like the humanity side of the topic. Um, ProQuest is what I use for politics research. So ProQuest has like a like basically like you can be like the last 24 hours and they have like good access to like all the like newspapers. So like usually if I'm doing like politics research and like I don't know, this is like probably a lot. So like if you're just getting started, like you have to do this. But like a lot of like high-end college policy teams, like they'll just be like, I don't know, like quote Ukraine aid, unquote. And they'll just literally cut like every single thing every single day that's published about Ukraine aid from the sources on ProQuest. The ProQuest is also like great if you have access to it because you can like search for like individual publications. So like you can be like New York Times. There was just like one New York Times opinion article that I want to find. And like sometimes like general search engines are kind of hard because like basically there can be a mismatch between the Google results of the article and what a database actually called the article in like the title. And so like sometimes it can be hard to find. So you can like search the exact day. Um yeah, those are I think the immediate basic ones. Sometimes like if there's like a journal that like I notice just like happens to publish like quite a bit on the topic, I will look for uh either just like the recent things that article was published or like a special issue on the topic that we're debating about. So a special issue is basically whatever a journal isn't just taking like, submissions from anyone about anything, but they're like specifically looking for submissions on one topic. And so, going to a journal and seeing if they've, done any like special issues on like your area is also like kind of a hack.
Nice, makes sense. That's really cool. I didn't know about ProQuest. It's very cool.
Yeah, request is nice.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so based off of stuff people have just said on like the debate subreddit, it seems like there's like some general
Sorry, there's a debate subreddit.
Yeah, you didn't know? It's just r/debate.
Oh, oh yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think I've like posted there a couple of times actually, but I've never like read through it. Like people like ask questions and stuff in there.
Yeah, yeah, but I was
Oh,
like
that's
looking
so
through to
cool.
see, yeah, so a lot of times they'll have questions about like research stuff, and it seems like a lot of times where students get stuck is trying to turn the stuff that they're reading into arguments. Like they'll have a
Mm,
hard time figuring out like how do I make this into an argument? Like that's one of the problems. Or on the other end, they're having trouble, like they have arguments they want to make but they can't find sources to go with the arguments. Like it'll be one of the two things.
yeah,
So
yeah. So for the second one, my like crass advice is that your argument's probably wrong and fake. So
probably
like if no one if you're like, ah, no one's publishing this result that I
weird.
think as high school student who doesn't know very much, how could this be? Like maybe because it's not real. But like maybe it is real. And I'll try to help with you with that one later. Okay, so the first one, you're like reading an article and you're just like, how do I like make this into cars? So like I think that the first thing to think about is that like evidence doesn't make arguments, right? Like evidence like supports an argument. So in general, you could like diversify like what kind of proof you think the evidence could, like provide. Um, so like, I don't know, like let's say that like you're debating politics, and you like find a poll that's like, I don't know, 75% of Americans like think immigrants commit a lot of crime. That doesn't like immediately like make an argument that you can put into like an article, but like you could like talk about like the political fallout and like use that as like evidence of like the political fallout. Or like you could like have like another thing is like just build upon whatever proof is in the article, and like eventually like you'll probably find like an argument. So if you like find like a super like specific like statistic that's like, I don't know, like border security increases trucker costs. Yeah, in and of itself, that doesn't mean anything. But like what problems result from trucker costs? How what are trucker costs like now, right? Like eventually I feel like you can like snowball into like finding a complete argument. I think it's really rare that like you'll find, like super complete arguments, especially in like articles, especially like if you're kind of looking at like more academic like articles. Like most people who are like seriously interrogating a subject kind of like understand that like it's impossible to like do all of the analysis of everything in like one paper. Like if you would like really want to prove anything, it's like really hard. And so like you kind of have to like build like a bunch of different sources and put them all together to build out like an article, an argument. Um if it's just kind of like a matter of like, oh, like there's this like big article, like what sections do I like kind of, take the direct quotations from? Um, if it's like a quantitative paper, obviously don't like take from like the model section or the math stuff. Like that's gonna be confusing. I would like suggest that you don't do like debater math and like try to like extrapolate, whatever like evidence that they've taken to sort of like make your own conclusion about any kind of relationship. Usually there's like a discussion section of like, more quantitative based studies that can be really helpful to like um kind of figure out how to position the evidence into like the broader conversation. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times like articles aren't going to like make the things they're trying to prove fit into kind of like the resolution that you're debating. So like you just have to like take the evidence that's out there and make it kind of like match what you're saying and wanting to say. If you can't like find uh okay, so it's like, okay, so if you're like, I can't find articles that like support what I'm saying. So usually that means, so are we like, what are you finding? Are you finding a bunch of articles that say the opposite of what you want to say? Okay, you're probably wrong. And like there aren't that many people who think that you're right. But yeah, I mean, if you're trying to like cite some sort of like very outsider perspective, I think you just gotta find like your one quack who like thinks like the other way. Like speaking of like past topics, if anyone debated the topic about high speed rail, Like, most people are like high speed rail, yay. But then there's this one guy, Peter O'Toole, who's like, I hate high speed rail. So like when you find your person, it's love. You know what I'm saying? Like you can just and then if you're like, oh, I only found one person, like who do they cite, right? like you know, articles have to derive citations if they're of academic merit. So like who do they cite? If you become a stalker, basically, like who do they panel with at like academic conferences? Who do they, sort of like partner with whenever they're doing interviews or discussions, right? Like, what publications do they appear in and who else writes the publication? You can just kind of like find the like crew. There's usually like little pockets of people who kind of like all say the same thing, and then just like find out what they've written. So I don't know, research, like, if you can't find research is all about figuring out what are the words that the people who have the conclusions that I want, what are the words they use to like express their ideas? Because once you know their words, then it's really easy. Because like you can just type it into Google. You're probably just like using debater words and not their words.
Makes sense. So for debaters who are having trouble coming up with ideas for
Mm.
like their what's it called? Contentions or advantages or whatever they're calling them. What part of the argument would you suggest they start with? Like, do you think they should start by trying to find, yeah, that makes
Like
sense.
always the link, right? Because it's like, I mean, you'd be like, I found this sweet impact. And it's like, I mean, yeah, like climate
Where
change is bad. Like find the hardest thing first, right? Like honestly, like that's what I almost every like contention or advantage that I find, it's like I find like a hard part, and then I'm just like, I'll just build around that. But like if you find like the hard part first, then you can always like find the contention. And that sometimes is uniqueness, right? Like, like for instance, like on this topic, the like neg uniqueness is like just like chops is horrible. Like obviously we like currently have like border surveillance. So like if you find that like article that's like you've got this like perfect balance of surveillance and not surveillance right now, like that's like whatever they say is your new contention, right? Like because like that's the hard part that you found. So like to me, I don't know. And like I guess it also comes down to like once I said like being like a little bit argument agnostic and like not caring about like the subject matter. So like to me, I'm like I don't really care what the contentions are. Like and maybe this is like my take. This is my take. This is not like all people's takes. But like, I don't think that like debate like shapes your actual opinions. Like, you're gonna like read a million opinions. Hopefully, like to a degree, like your parents and your friends and your own like personal convictions like are more important to like forming your political thoughts than like your extracurricular activities. But like like so to me, I'm like, I don't really care about what the conditions are. Like, I just want to like make the most strategic arguments possible. So if I'm like spinning my wheels trying to find something and it's not there, like I'll just move on because like that's not there. Uh Once the year is started, you can also just like, I mean, find other people's stuff and take it.
no
As
wrong.
another hack, another hack.
No one's talking about it. Nobody's
No
talking.
one, no one's talking about how you could just take articles from other people and
That's,
read those and cite them.
that's crazy. You'd think more people would do that. Wild.
I don't.
Only. Okay, I know that Paul asked me to ask you some questions. I'm trying to find where he asked me to ask you them. But while I'm looking, let's say
Mhm.
hypothetically, I was trying to become faster at cutting cards. Not me, not me, of
Yeah.
course. But
Yeah, yeah.
how would someone who's not me go about doing that?
So I don't know how to say it like in French, but like there's like a thought in like cooking that's like everything in its place. And like I think that matters for cutting cards too, right? Like you want to have your like Google, or you want to have your like Word up. maybe like have like a mouse with some macros like programmed in. You want to maybe like be in a comfortable position, have a little bev, like just kind of like get everything in place first. I think is also like something that's like kind of important for like cutting cards. Um, for just like making it faster. I mean, just in terms of it being just like literally like the speed at which you do it faster, I would say like reading comprehension is like probably the most important thing. Like if you can just like read something, understand what it means, and like know which parts to like copy and paste, I think that is probably what like makes some people faster. But other than that, I think it's just like making like a mouse, like have a mouse. Have a mouse with like your word macros like programmed in so that you can like really quickly like underline and highlight. Um, but yeah, I think verbatim makes it like pretty fast. But I don't know. I feel like the speed is like overrated, right? Like it's really about the quality, not the quantity.
That's what I always say, you know?
But yeah,
So true. Okay, where is this? This is where I wish I knew how to edit videos. Where? How is the Bucky's? How is the Bowling Green Bucky?
the
Is it
BG
good?
Buckies, I mean, it's
Yeah, the BG
glorious.
Bucky.
Like it's definitely glorious. I don't know if this will make the video, but like I just feel like students should be like if they live in the South, at least like making sure their coaches are stopping at Bucky's like on all trips because otherwise their coaches probably don't like them very much because they don't want them to be happy on the trip.
Is it like a full, like it's like the Bucky's that you
Yeah,
like it's an entire, that's crazy.
it's a real actual Bucky's. Yeah,
How is
it's not
the,
the biggest one in the world, but it's like pretty big.
it's a full one? Nice.
Mhm.
Is that Bucky's mascot always there? Like, is he just always hanging out, or was it like a special opening day?
Special opening. So usually like Bucky, like the mascot, is like there on like special days and then sometimes on weekends too. But I've gone to Bucky's on opening day, and then the other times it's only been like super late at night.
Gotcha. Does it have a Bucky's statue outside?
Yeah, it's color. It's like got color on it too. It's kind of weird,
Interesting.
like
Maybe
the
it's like the one we
metals.
saw was like tarnished.
Yeah, I think it could be like the weather, like it's been weathered out, or like or maybe like this Bucky's is just like very special and like it has.
Let's see.
Yeah, you didn't. You have the only like Bucky's that I'm just like is demonstrably better than like this Bucky's is like the Bucky's that we went to in southern or like eastern Tennessee on the way to Wake. That Bucky's is like bananas. I think it's the biggest Bucky's in America. It has to be.
Yeah, that was wild. Okay. I know I have these questions somewhere, but I suppose they're just gone now forever. Um, okay, I know he wanted to ask you about like I guess like coaching. He had a lot of coaching questions for you. So I guess like when it comes to what do you like about coaching? Like what made you want to start coaching?
I think I started coaching because I liked debate. Like I mean, because like when you start coaching, like you're like literally like months from just having debated. So like immediately, like, and I guess I wanted to coach because the parts that I like the most about debate are the parts that like you do as a coach. So like I liked researching, I liked thinking of like the strategies. I liked, like thinking about the arguments. I didn't like always love like listening to judges and debates. So like, that part, it's like all the best parts and like not the worst part. So like I think that's like immediately why I started coaching. And I think that's why most people coach. I think like the maybe like more interesting thing is like why like I continue to coach. Um so I think like at some point, like if you, like reach a requisite level of success and like stay in debate for like a relatively long period of time, it becomes like less about, just like individual like success obviously you like want to do well and like you're trying your best to like help your students succeed. But I don't know, I think like I like debate because I think there's like a population of like students for whom debate like initiates like the switch of their like passion and interest for the world. And for like those kids, like the fact that there is debate helps them like stay in school and like be motivated to like get up in the morning and like not be sad all day, right? So like I think like that's a good thing about debate is like not every like kid wants to play sports or like I don't know like do theater or sing or whatever, right? Like, and I think like it's also good because it's like you don't have to be like that talented to be like really good at debate. You know what I mean? Like it generally speaking, like if you want to be like a nationally competitive like singer and you just like have like a croaky frog voice, like it doesn't matter how long you like try to sing, like you just like sound bad. So like you're cooked. But I feel like in debate, like there are like kids that are competitive who enjoy just like that side of like debate, the competition part, and like debate is something that you can just like try. So I think it's like a fun game. Like I think it's like an enjoyable fun game. I think that like it improves students' outcomes. And like I think for high schoolers, like it definitely improves like reading comprehension. I think it definitely improves your ability to like manage stressful situations, like just by pure exposure, shock, right? Like you just like get put in a bunch of stressful spots over and over again, and eventually you're just like
Get used
SATs,
to it,
like
yeah.
no big deal, right? Like I've had my computer crash in a debate round before, like that's way more stressful and like scary and sad for some reason. Um, yeah, and like I think like it's a good place to hopefully make some friends. That's like fun. I think like the people who like stay and debate usually like are like not trash can people, though like there are a lot of trash can people in debate too. So watch out. Um yeah, I don't know. I like fostering team atmospheres. Like I think that's really enjoyable. Like if you like get a group of people together that are like honestly like pretty different from each other, and then just like kind of point them in one direction with a common cause, like eventually at some point they're just like friends, even though like they maybe don't have that much in common. Because like you find that like in the ways that it matters, you do have a lot in common. So I think it's like a good way to like create camaraderie. Yeah.
Nice. What would you say, if anything, I imagine there's something that's different. What has like changed to your approach? What has changed in your approach to coaching from when you started to like now?
Hmm. Well, I think I'm just like responsible for a lot more now. So like definitely just like more of like a wide view perspective on like students. I would say like the biggest thing is just kind of like keep this in mind that like their students are like doing other stuff all the time that are not like the thing that they're teaching or coaching. And so like I think thinking more about like students as like people with like I don't know other things to do a lot is like super helpful. Um I think like over time, not just me, but like debate in general, like has gotten more like diverse in argumentation. So like there's like more different types of arguments that I coach. Um yeah, but I think like fundamentally like things are pretty similar.
What would you say? Because at Wiki, there's like students who come in with like a lot of debate experience, and then there's also like true novices and stuff who will just join the team. Like, how do you try and like balance those two things out? Like trying to help people who like haven't debated at all kind of catch up to speed, and then also people who've been debating for like a long time.
Yeah. So I think like The first thing is like it just has to be a goal of yours. Like, and to me, I'm just like, if your program isn't accessible to people who, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say like you have to do this because it's like some people are like, I only have so much time in the day and I'm one human. So I totally get it. But I feel like, if you're like a well-resourced team and you have like a considerable amount of, assistance administratively, financially, and maybe hopefully some other coaches, you want to have a program that serves everyone. And okay, maybe this is a big thing that like actually has changed my mind about not just coaching, but like my thoughts with debate in general. I think that like debate and just like coaches in general have to realize that like debate has to be good primarily for people who lose most of their debates. Right? Like, and then that's like, because that's like most of the people in debate are the people who like aren't that good at debate. And like maybe like lose most of their rounds is like too far, but like at least go 3-3, right? Like, who lose a ton of debates. Like, so to me, it's like as a coach, as like a person thinking about debate, you have to think about what is this providing someone who like never wins a tournament, who like just never is going to like be a national champion or even like contend for a championship. Like, what is this providing? And if the answer is like nothing, and or just like actually negative things, just like stress and sadness.
Mental illness, yeah.
And then it's like, okay, maybe you should like reconceptualize like your program or debate in general, like because most people aren't going to win all their most of their rounds. So that's like a thing that like you have to sort of like think about. Like, does my program offer something to a novice who's like gonna be overwhelmed and like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Um, I think in terms of just like the direct teaching, it's like not overcomplicating it. Like debate, I don't know, debaters like to think that like, oh, theory and it's all so complex. And it's like, no, it's like actually like fundamentally very simplistic thoughts. Like there's a lot of terms and jargon that kind of like dress up what we're but like fundamentally like we are not getting beyond like an undergraduate level logic course with like what we're kind of like doing from a theoretical perspective in debate. So like if you actually understand debate concepts, you should be able to explain it in terms that like anyone at the very least like a well-read high schooler can understand. um and especially like for non-policy formats, like I mean, like, isn't the whole point for it to be a little easier? So yeah, I think like you want to emphasize the things that your program provides while they're like learning and trying to figure things out. And then you want to create a way of teaching that doesn't overcomplicate debate and focus on like one thing at a time, right? Like your student's not going to be able to like be great at going for like T decides K's kind of plans, contention, whatever, right? Like all at once. Like maybe like all that maybe like all they learn and the whole time that like they're learning debate is just like how to weigh. Like maybe that's like all they take away from debate. It's fine, right? Like everyone's gonna like take away like something different and like everyone's gonna kind of like get hooked on one thing. And like yeah. And I don't know, like to me it's kind of like when you really think about it, the like gains you get from debate, you probably like get just from like the amount of mastery you need to like go 3-3 at a tournament, right? Like the people going 3-3 are probably getting in terms of like real life skills the same thing as the people who like are winning the tournament. The difference is just like some people like I said, like get like really engaged and interested in like about the competitive part. So it's also just kind of like I think you just got to be okay with the fact that like maybe they hit a ceiling, maybe they quit after 2 years too. Like a lot of novices like are gonna quit debate, which is like fine, but like focus on what debate is giving them that is kind of divorced from their like mastery of like all skills in debate.
Makes sense. So what do you think debate would give like a novice who competes for 2 years and then quits? Like what should they be getting out of debate? Or is it like different from person to person?
I think there's some fundamental things. Number one is like confidence while speaking. which is like something I think debaters just like dramatically understate as like a benefit of debate. Like at a tournament that's like 6 rounds, in like most formats, you're giving 12 speeches that are like anywhere from like 3 to into policy 8 minutes long. So like 12 speeches is like more than you do in an undergraduate public speaking course. So like one tournament, you have already created as much value in terms of standing up and speaking in front of an audience and the benefits that provides to a student um, as an undergraduate public speaking course. So over the course of like 1 or 2 seasons, like that student is dramatically ahead of like your average, high school or college student, just in terms of like their exposure to the literal act of like standing up in front of a group and speaking. And like relative to like what debate can provide, like almost every career at some point involves standing up, saying something, and not looking like an idiot. So like debate, I think even if a novice like did 1 season, just their novice year and like quit, they would still have way more exposure to like confidently speaking in front of an audience than your average student. Two, I think that it should provide like skills in terms of like reading. Like this been studied that like debate dramatically improves like reading comprehension, like mastery of like being able to read like snippets of info and distill what that means, which is like a core skill tested on like I think the SAT, definitely on like the LSAT. And so those are like important skills to develop. And like, if you were to study for the LSAT, and you're spending thousands of dollars on lessons, one thing they would tell you to do is like, oh, you should be like reading like a long form article every day and like writing out your thoughts on it. Is like a practice that's like fairly common for people studying for the LSAT. Like debaters are doing that like a million times over all the time, right? Like reading a long form article, cutting it up into little parts, and then like putting tags on it is like a practice that like is incredibly helpful for like most standardized tests and for like class in general. So I think like that's a skill that like you're definitely going to be getting out of debate. Um, I think that more coaches should teach debate like formal logic. Um, Even if like they're not like being like, haha, this is a post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy. If they're like at the very least like helping students understand that like the most concepts in debate just like kind of come down to um like a logical assessment of opportunity cost, then like I think that also is like helpful at just like creating some decision making, uh which I think is important for like life, but also hopefully like school, maybe career. I don't know. Depends on the thing. And the last thing is just like I think that it creates even a year, just like creates like a level of like exposure to like different literature bases and sort of like people than like you would typically get. If you think about like a class, right? Like a college course, like half a year, you're gonna like do like an English class maybe. Like how many books like are you gonna read? 6, maybe 7. You're gonna be reading more than like 7 books worth of like material if you're like doing debate correctly. So even over the course of the year, like you're just gonna like have like a pretty reasonable amount of like reading. And like the number of people who like don't really read in their everyday life after high school is like pretty astounding. So like, any student who even does debate for a year, I think is gonna get some benefits out of it. Hopefully also just like your team atmosphere is like okay. So like it's fun. I don't know. I think debate should also be like kind of fun.
For sure. I guess that's pretty much it question-wise. I'm trying to remember. Oh, the last question that we usually ask all of the people we interview is like, who is somebody who's helped you either when you were a debater, your like career as a coach who does not know it? So who's somebody that's helped you that is not aware, maybe is not aware of the extent to which they were helpful to you?
Mm. That's, like, hard because there's, like, so many people, that, like, I could say, like, were, incredibly helpful to me. Like, people that, like, I think know it would be, like, your coaches. So, like, my coach, Glenn Prince, was, like, really dope. Um, Steve Doubledy, really cool guy. Um, Chris Joffrion, also awesome, but also these are just my coaches, so, like, hopefully they, like, knew that, like, they were, really helpful to me. Okay, so the person who probably doesn't even know who I am, who's actually very helpful to me, were these, like, 2 debaters, and they, like, debated for, I think, either, like I think the University of South Carolina, like, some school doesn't even exist anymore. And they, like, won NPDA Parley Nationals my freshman year. They won the MPTE and the MPDA. I, like, genuinely stalked them. Like, at tournaments, like, I was, like, so mid. I would almost always go, like, like 3-3 or, like, maybe break and, like, drop immediately. And then, like, literally, I would just, like, march like a, like, mad person to, like, all of their rounds. I would ignore my team and be like, "I'm gonna watch these 2 debaters, like, debate all their rounds." I would, like, take, like, notes on, like, how they did things. So, like, they were definitely, like, super influential. My, like, first year in college debate becoming, like, decent, after that. Their names were Ian and Marie, so thank you for being good at debate and, helping me see someone good at debate.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I probably missed some questions that Paul had, but,
Mhm.
I'm sure he'll tell me what those were later, and then I can ask you those as a
Yeah,
follow-up at some
interview
point.
2, interview 2.
Exactly, part 2, the like, I can't remember what I was gonna say. Like, not a sequel, but like a bonus feature, right? Just
Mhm.
like
Yeah,
the additional questions. Okay,
nice.
that's pretty much
Like
it. Thank you.
DLC, paid
Exactly.
only.
Yeah, exactly. And not even like on Proteus. People have to like DM me to get it.
Yeah, the Proteus season pass.
We make one of those like like the TV channels you can make for
Oh,
yeah.
premium.
Yeah, exactly. I think that'll definitely work for sure. All right. Well, those are pretty much
Absolutely.
it. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Chad. I'm
You're
gonna stop the
welcome.
recording.